My name is Rick Petherbridge, and I'm here to talk tennis. And today we're going to talk about Roland Garros, and specifically the men's draw at Roland Garros. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the draw into different categories of players, and we're going to start off with favorites. And of course, the clear favorite at Roland Garros is Rafa Nadal. And there's a lot of reasons for that. First of all, he's been the dominant clay court player in tennis for 10, 15 years. And specifically, there are a number of reasons why this Roland Garros is really important to Nadal for historical reasons. The first is that he's won 13 Roland Garros championships. And if he wins this year, that would be the 14th. And that would be a record. No other player has ever won 14 Grand Slam events at one particular site, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, the US Open. And that's the kind of record that might never be broken, or at least not in my lifetime. It is an impressive accomplishment to have been so dominant at one particular tournament event. And I'm sure Nadal is very well aware of that, and I think he clearly wants to have his, a special place in tennis history, and that would be one of the things that would be important to him. And of course, probably the more important historical thing about this tournament is that it would give Nadal 21 Grand Slam championships. And of course, right now, he is tied with Roger Federer for 20 Grand Slam championships. So if he wins Roland Garros, he would then be in the lead. And of course, everyone knows, at least in, the arguments about the greatest of all time, generally you start with how many Grand Slam tournaments you've won. So this would be something that would be really important for Nadal, and I think he's very aware of that. So I think this is a huge opportunity for him, but it's also, I think he probably feels a little pressure. This is a big moment in his career, and he wants to come through. When you look at how dominant Nadal has been at Roland Garros, one of the things that comes to mind is that only 2 players have ever beaten Nadal at Roland Garros. The first was Robin Soderling. That was in 2009. Soderling's no longer playing. He's not going to be in the draw, so that's not something Nadal has to worry about. And of course, the other player that beat him at Roland Garros was Djokovic, and that was in 2015. And if you're somebody who's a little superstitious, you could say Soderling beat him in 2009. 6 years later, Djokovic beat him in 2015. And you know what? 6 years later is 2021. So maybe there's a 6-year curse or jinx for Nadal. So let's take a look at how Nadal's performed during this clay court season and see why, in my opinion, he has not been as dominant a clay court player this year as he has been in past years. And so let's take a look at each one of the Masters events. The first Masters on clay is at Monte Carlo. And of course, Nadal lost in the quarterfinals to Rublev. And then Tsitsipas went on to beat Rublev in the final to win Monte Carlo. And that's an event that Nadal has done really well at. I think he's won at least 10 times there. So it was a pretty big upset for him to lose in the quarters. And I think it was pretty surprising that he lost to Rublev, who's a very good hard court player, but hasn't had prior clay court wins against Nadal. The next Masters event on clay is Madrid, and Nadal lost in the quarterfinals to Zverev. I believe Zverev won that in straight sets, 6-4, 6-4. And again, a little surprising to see Nadal lose at a clay court event so early in the quarterfinals. And again, shows, you know, a little vulnerability on his part. It also means that he hasn't played nearly as many matches on clay as he normally does, right? In a more normal season, he would have won Monte Carlo, and he would have gotten at least to the semis or the finals of Madrid. In fairness to Nadal, Madrid is probably the most difficult clay court tournament for him, and that's because Madrid is played at altitude, and the ball moves a little bit faster than it does at the other events. But Nadal still has a very good record at the Madrid Masters. And then the final Masters event leading up to Roland Garros is Rome. And Nadal did win the Rome Masters and beat Djokovic in the final. It was a 3-set match. Nadal won the first set. Djokovic came back and won the second set pretty easily. I think it was 6-1, and then Nadal won the third set. So if you're just looking at his performance from this clay court season, I think you'd say that it was unusual in that he lost earlier than he would normally lose at events like Monte Carlo and Madrid, and that he doesn't have as many matches under his belt, and that more different players are beating him, right? So in the old days, like the only two players that seemed to be able to push Nadal or beat Nadal on clay were Djokovic and maybe Thiem, right? But here we're seeing players like Rublev, you know, younger players, Zverev, beating him in these clay court events. And I think it means that there's just more players that have the ability to beat Nadal on clay on any given day now than they have in the past. But having said all that, Nadal seems to play better at Roland Garros than he does at any other location, and I think there's reasons for it. First of all, Roland Garros is a 5-set event, and I think Nadal is a very fit player with great stamina. So even if he isn't having the best day, he's going to outlast most players. And then the other thing is the main court at Roland Garros is huge. And that plays right into Nadal's style of play, right? Which is that he likes to stand way behind the baseline for the return of serve. It gives him extra time. He's much more comfortable returning like that. And then he's just quick enough to get back up to the baseline and rally out the point from there, right? But because the center court at Roland Garros is so big, it allows Nadal to use his speed and to be a really effective defensive player in that he can get a lot of balls back, and it's really hard to hit a winner against him there, and it's really hard to get a service ace against him because he can stand so far back on the return. Okay, so that's the clear favorite, Nadal, but if I had to pick a second favorite, that would be Djokovic, for a lot of different reasons. One, he has beaten Nadal at Roland Garros. He beat him in 2015. That was on the center court that Nadal likes so much, and he beat him in straight sets. So he's one of the few players on the tour that not only knows that he can beat Nadal on clay, but knows he can beat Nadal on clay at Roland Garros, even on Nadal's favorite court. So he clearly would be my second favorite. You also would have to say that Djokovic is one of the few players that has a career edge over Nadal. So in their career, Djokovic has beaten Nadal 29 times, and Nadal has beaten Djokovic 28 times. So over their career, Djokovic has the edge. He's won more times than Nadal has. And there's very few players that can say that. Now, my third favorite is Dominic Thiem. And that's really because that he's a really great clay court player, and he has a really good history at Roland Garros, right? So he made it to the finals in 2018, and in 2019, of course, losing to Nadal in both of those. But he's also a very fit player, so he's not somebody who's going to run out of gas in a fifth set. He can, he has the athletic ability and the stamina to play a tough 5-set match against Nadal. And his game is really well suited for clay. Now, the one thing that I'd have to say about Thiem is that he's struggled this year. And there's been a lot of sort of speculation as why he has had a sort of a subpar year. And I think most of the experts seem to believe that Thiem has overplayed a little bit, right? So over the last 5 years, I believe he's played more matches than any other sort of top 20 player, and I think by a significant number. And there are people that believe that he's just overplayed a little bit, and that's why he's struggled a little bit. But I don't think anybody believes that he won't get back to the level of play that he was playing over the last couple of years, and that this is just a temporary setback. And I think he's one of those guys that has a game that's made for clay, and I think he likes Roland Garros. So that's why I've made him my third favorite.